Who corners himself away from society, refuses to mix, or begins to think, have these thoughts about, well, maybe Muslims are like this. It's exactly, you study the whole concept of the media. That when we were growing up, you find who was portrayed as a radical individual. The IRA, the Irish individual. That's when we went to school, every other friend had, watch out, you ain't carrying a bomb on you, Paddy. That's what happened, isn't it? And what they're going to create inside the mind today, inside this country, that every other Muslim is carrying what with them? It's carrying a bomb with them. That's what they're trying to create inside the society. It's all false. 99.99999% of Muslims don't believe in this. That's a clear fact. Ask any simple Muslim. The Quran tells us quite clearly, whoever takes the soul of an innocent individual, فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. It's not a biblical scripture. It's not the teaching of Jesus. It's inside the Quran, inside Surah Al-Ma'idah. Whoever takes the life of one individual at any justification has killed what? The whole of humanity. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. You say one individual, is as you say the whole world. That's Islamic faith. At the moment, who's spilling the blood of people? Who is spilling the blood? Simple, isn't it? Who's spilling the blood? Are we spilling the blood of anybody? Or is what's taking place at the moment? People begin to highlight the problems of the society. You have to create a fringe movement. You have to create difficulties inside society. Somebody to blame, the blame culture. 10 years this country's been at war inside Afghanistan. Some 8 years inside Iraq. It costs this government billions an hour. Billions an hour it costs this government. So naturally what's going to happen? Resources are going to be taken away. Resources are going to be taken away, so the average person inside this country begins to suffer. I sometimes begin to think, look at the people coming to this country. They get their housing given to them, they get benefits given to them. I may as well become a big BUM and sit down and just claim everything from this government. That's the image they're trying to portray, that the people come in and taking away from the government. There's a hell of a lot of contribution that Muslims have made towards this government, made towards the society, made towards the businesses, and try to exert their efforts. And that's what we're trying to do, exert our efforts to this society. That needs to be recognized rather than being tarnished, that we have no efforts towards this society. Even inside the Daily Mail that you find, the most best behaved individuals inside this society, amongst the minorities that you find, is none other than the Muslims. 10 years later that you find, the worst behaved individuals from the minorities, who? Is the Muslims. 1 in 3 individuals, young individuals at prison is who? A Muslim. What's brought us down to such a low level? That so many Muslims are coming into these bad habits. Do we claim that Islam is supposed to be the way of life? Or rather, are we portraying an Islamic, a cultural way of Islam? If we begin to preach the orthodox way of Islam, to remind ourselves, to remind our youth, to remind the community around us, this is what Islam stands for, this is what Islam teaches, then automatically there's going to be fruits in what we do. So this other fitna that we find, of relationship that we find, is haram inside Islam. It's quite simple. We shouldn't be taken aback. There is supposed to be no relationship until after marriage. That's what Islam says. The Quran says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. Quran doesn't say, وَلَا تَفْعَلُوا الزِّنَا. Quran says, don't do zina. It says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't come near zina. Indeed, it is an evil path to follow. And even the Bible, it says that as well. That the eye that looks in a lustful manner has committed what? Committed adultery. That's what the Bible comments as well. And that's exactly what Islam is saying. That any path that leads to sin needs to be curtailed, needs to be controlled. And as Islam is leading people towards a fruitful life, teaching our youth that the way that you channel your lusts and your desires is via wedlock, is through marriage. فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدًا. Marry whatever you want from amongst the women, whether 2, 3 or 4. If you cannot be just, then just marry the one individual. That's what the Sharia is telling us. Islam is not saying person has mistresses, visits prostitutes, goes to brothels, has red light districts or zones, whatever you find. Oh, that's all allowed, isn't it? That's all acceptable inside society. Oh, but to have polygyny is not polygamy. It's polygyny, that a man is allowed to marry more than one woman. Something perfectly allowed inside Islam. No one is imposing that inside this land. That's something which Islam has allowed to take place. But that it becomes something which is that many of us begin to shy away in our cultural pretext of understanding Islam. So we need to begin to remind our youth, these are the things that you need to challenge yourself to come towards the better way of life. And the person begins to follow that better way of life, then Allah has mentioned that those people who believe, whether male or female, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا, will give them a good life. There'll be a good life for those individuals inside this world and likewise inside the akhirah as well. There'll be a state of peace amongst those individuals. How many young individuals are disturbed today? Psychologically they find it disturbed, sociologically they're disturbed, mentally disturbed, physically they're disturbed. Because why? They're living an immoral life. They're going against the natural fitrah Allah has laid down. So Muslims trying to encourage them to come back to the better way of life, that they can have a better life inside this dunya and likewise inside the akhirah as well. These are going to be benefits for our own self, preservation of our own soul, as long as we remain upon this earth, and likewise inside the akhirah as well. Preservation of one's mind, one's wealth, one's property, one's honor, one's dignity. That's what Islam is encouraging us to channel towards our youth. But we can begin to see every single day on a daily basis, we're beginning to lose our youth. Lose them on a daily, on a massive scale. That for every one individual that may come to the masjid, probably 999 are still out there on road, as they say, doing haram, doing incorrect things. So we need to become proactive in delivering the message, reminding ourselves, reminding the people around us, reminding the Muslims about sticking to al-Islam, highlighting the beauty of Islam, the tenets of Islam, to take them away from this sluggish lifestyle, this evil lifestyle, which is tearing away at our society. And we may begin to enjoy the fruits if we remain inside these lands, wherever we remain, that the Muslims have a fruitful life wherever they go. Those individuals who turn away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will be, unfortunately, may Allah forbid, a difficult life for those individuals inside this dunya, and likewise inside the akhirah as well. So may Allah subhanahu give us all the tawfiq and ability to understand the proper understanding of Islam, to exert our efforts to go and learn what al-Islam is, to come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to read the Quran, to study the Quran, to read the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to read whatever we can, to engage ourselves to learn. Because we know that this is an ummah which is based upon ordering the good and forbidding the evil. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. You're the best people ever raised up. You order the good and you forbid the evil. And you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we find in conclusion, the famous hadith is known as the hadith of Safina, the hadith of the ship. Because many people think, what's the point in talking about this, encouraging people about this? And in the Muslim ummah, or the whole of the world is just like one great big nation traveling in a ship. Traveling together in a ship. Some people may be the admiral, some people may be the people on the ship, on the deck who are cleaning, some may be just the navy, whatever it may be, all the chef, whatever it may be. Everybody's doing different things, pulling the mast or whatever it may be. We're just all traveling on one great big ship. Different decks that we find of the ship. So the people in the lower deck, they have to come to the people in the upper deck to tell them to throw the buckets and to collect the water. So one day somebody decides, some smart Muslim decides that there's no point going upstairs and telling them to disturb them to collect the water. Why don't we just drill a hole inside the ship right here? So they drill a hole, and what begins to take place? They begin to take the water, extract the water, and eventually water begins to seep in. And you find lower deck begins to drown. Then the middle deck, till eventually the whole ship, فَهَلَكُوا جَمِيعًا, everybody drowns, irrespective of whoever they are. That is the parable, that we are all together, we are a reflection of one another. There should be no distinction when you're this and I'm this. I'm illiterate, you're literate, I'm illiterate, you're literate. I'm white, I'm black, you're this, you're that. No, it's just one great big ship of traveling together. One great big community. We bounce off and we reflect one another. If you drown, I drown. If I drown, you drown. There's no distinction. And that's what Islam is. Islam is not there to make a distinction between people. Islam is there that we are on a journey together. That try to keep everybody on the ship. Don't let anybody jump off the ship. And don't let anybody drill a hole inside the ship. And don't let anyone rock the ship. Keep that ship flowing together in its final destination. And when every individual, you need together with one another. And as you find at the end destination, that some people may think that there may be any gangsters inside paradise. I think there are no gangsters in paradise. There will be no Tony Montana, there will be no Godfather, there will be no Gambino family, there will be no Goodfellas, there will be no Untouchables, there will be no one in paradise. So that's what you think. Al Pacino Scarface that you find that Muslim youth begin to walk around with a zoot in their mouth and his picture on the shirt and think that they're Tony Montana, or they think they're Scarface. Even read the history of Scarface. How did Scarface earn that scar on his face? Various people writing about the gangland.